webinar series. Welcome to National Mortgage Professional Magazine's webinar titled Planning to Win 2013, 3 Simple Steps to Knock It Out of the Park with Purchase Partners, sponsored and presented by Maximum Acceleration and Mortgage Success Source. I would like to thank all of our webinar attendees for taking the time out of their busy days for this very valuable and informative webinar in our ongoing series of webinars. I would especially like to thank today's webinar sponsors and presenters, Maximum Acceleration and Mortgage Success Source. Maximum Acceleration is a professional coaching company built around the model known as the Business Planning Tool, which is organized by the Pyramid of Success. This model contains over 56 individual goals and over 3,000 action items that allow them to build a custom development plan for each of their clients, allowing their coaches and clients to focus on tactical skills, development, and refinement that will yield dramatic results. Mortgage Success Source brings together the power of the Mortgage Market Guide and Loan Toolbox as a central resource for mortgage originators to find all the tools they need to be successful in today's market. They are committed to providing you with strategies, information, and practical resources that help you work smarter, increase your loan volume, and generate leads. We are lucky enough to have 3 amazing presenters for today's webinar. Greg Frost is one of the most sought-after mortgage productivity trainers in our industry. Learn the why-fors and the detailed how-tos from the first billion-dollar originator. He was one of the original principal contributors to the Loan Toolbox and has trained thousands of top originators who swear by his systems, strategies, and tactics. Last year, Greg co-authored Mastering the Art of Success with Les Brown and Mark Victor Hansen. He can be reached at greg@gregfrost.com. Renee Rodriguez is the founder and CEO of Valentum, an enterprise education and consulting company specializing in the application of the latest brain research combined with over 30 years of experience to the areas of leadership development, employee engagement, sales training, and professional influence. Valentum delivers practical ways for individuals and groups to grow and renew themselves even as they engage and profit from recurring change. A captivating, high-energy speaker, Renee is in high demand for annual events, conventions, and keynote speeches. He has been a featured speaker at the Microsoft Annual Convergence Conference, the President's Network, the Loan Toolbox Business Plan Conferences, and many more. We would like to apologize for any confusion that may have occurred from the incorrect bio information that was disseminated for Mr. Rodriguez. We apologize to both Prime Source Mortgage and Mr. Rodriguez personally for the confusion. Our final presenter, Eric Janesco, is the head coach and chief business development strategist for Maximum Acceleration, a coaching system designed to help loan originators build their businesses by implementing proven core strategies. Most recently, Eric was honored with the designation of National Mortgage Professional Magazine's 40 Most Influential Mortgage Professionals Under 40 for 2012. Before I turn over the webinar to the presenters, I would like to conduct a brief poll with a few survey questions. Actually, I think I'm a little early on the poll questions. I think Eric Janesco would like to speak before we do those. So I'm going to hand it over to Eric, and then I'll come back to you with some survey questions in a few minutes.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started, guys. As people are getting signed on, I know that people are always taking a few minutes to wrap up last-minute calls with clients and those kind of things. So there's a couple of housekeeping things we want to do. One, wanted to make sure that you all had the ability to hear us clearly. If you're having any problems with your audio quality at all, if you're listening through your computer speakers, you are welcome on the right-hand side of your screen at the control bar to go ahead and call in. Usually the audio quality is greatly improved if you go ahead and use a phone line to connect the audio for today's program. Once again, I want to thank our sponsors for today's program, National Mortgage Professionals Magazine and the Mortgage Success Source family of companies, along with my co-presenters, two of the greatest guys in the industry that I know, Greg Frost and Renee Rodriguez. We're going to get right into a couple of things here. The other thing that we did provide, there was a link that was sent out earlier this morning with a couple of key tools that you can use to be able to get more out of today's program. So the tools and resources that we are going to be going over and working through as we conduct today's program will be an asset to you if you can grab the link. If you'll just take a few seconds to go ahead and do that now as we're doing some of these initial poll questions, I think you'll be able to have a little better handle on taking advantage of some of the ideas and strategies that we're going to walk you through today. The focus of today's program really, though, is about planning for a winning 2013. And what we really want to think about and do maybe a little bit differently in today's program than maybe any other business planning that you've done or been exposed to in your career is we want to apply some of the knowledge and thoughts and ideas that we've learned. I mean, in the last 8 years, we've put literally over 2,500 individual loan officers through our one-on-one coaching program. We've also done literally thousands of hours of research and development work, a lot of which Renee and Greg were heavily involved in, as well as myself, in studying really the art of growth. And what that comes down to is if you know, people often ask me if I had to sum up what is coaching really all about, it's about one word: transformation. We're trying to help you take bad habits and turn them into good habits and turn them into great habits. And that's what today's program is really all about, is how to help you look at a different approach, a different way, and a different strategy for planning a successful strategy to grow throughout 2013. The other key focus of today's program is really centered around the idea of purchase volume. So I have a couple of poll questions that we wanted to ask. So Beverly, if you're ready to go ahead and launch those poll questions, why don't we go ahead and get the program started just by getting a sense of where you guys are at in your business.
Okay, so the first poll question is on your screen right now. It says, comparing 2011 to 2012, did your purchase versus refinance balance percentage? And the choices are improve, get worse, or stay the same. So if you could just answer by clicking your choice on the screen, and I'll give you a few seconds to answer, and then I'll let you know what the results are.
Also, as we're doing this, Beverly, a couple of additional people have asked for the link. So while you're doing the poll questions, I'm going to repost the link to be able to download tools and resources in the chat window here in just a minute. So for those of you listening on today's call, to be able to download the tools and resources, if you'll hang with me for just a couple of seconds, I'm going to get this posted.
Okay, and I'm going to close up this poll question in a few seconds. Okay, closing it now. All right, I'm going to share the results with you. So 47% said that it improved, 19% said it got worse, and 34% said it stayed the same. Okay, we're going to launch our next poll question. And here we go. If rates went up to 5.5 on March 1st, how would your pipeline look? Great, concerning, scary, or empty? Please put your votes in now. Okay, and I'm going to close this one up. And sharing the results, not surprisingly, 9% said great, 53% said concerning, 31% said scary, and 7% said empty. Okay, and we have one more poll question for you right now. And that is, in order to make your target income, how confident are you that you know how many leads a month you must generate? The choices are, I know exactly, pretty sure, not sure, and I have no clue. Okay, and I'm going to be closing voting in 5 seconds. Okay, and the results. 18% said I know exactly, 55% said pretty sure, 23% said not sure, and 5% said I have no clue. All right, thank you all for voting, and I'm going to turn it back over to Eric to continue with our presentation.
So based on the results of these questions that Beverly just reviewed with you all, obviously there's some concerns here, and obviously this is hitting something that is of concern to a great percentage of our audience. So I'm glad that we've dialed in. You know, we've been doing this webinar series for several weeks now consecutively, and we're excited about the opportunity to bring great information and value to an industry. When you guys are hungry for it, this is what we're trying to bring to you. So today's program, I'm excited to see is very dialed in. I think we've got some great information over the next hour and 50 minutes that we're going to share with you guys. It's going to really help you create a winning strategy for 2013, both in the area of how to boost your purchase business and also in the area of how to be more strategic and proactive in what you build. At the end of the day, like I said, our goal today is to stretch you to transform into what's possible. And I'm going to challenge you throughout today's event to think bigger than you've ever thought before and to look at how to create radical growth and change along the way. Along the way, we're also going to walk you through a 5-phase process we call the Power Transformation System, beginning with the end in mind. I mean, the number one failing of most strategic planning programs is they start from a very reactive standpoint. You know, typical strategic planning workshops start with a SWOT exercise, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The problem with that is you're looking at the reality of your environment and reacting to it, failing to look at what you ultimately want to achieve. So the first part of today's process is really drilling down and picking a course, a direction. So what we're doing today is about taking a different approach than you may have ever taken before so that you can create a different result. As we move through today's program, we'll move into the planning phase and then the execution phase and get very tactical on how to go about making the necessary changes and implementing the strategies and skills that will allow you to achieve the results that you want to achieve. At the end of the day, it's kind of like if I'm sitting here in the middle of the Midwest, I live in central Missouri, right about the center of the country. Let's say I decide I want to go somewhere. First thing I got to decide is where I want to go. So let's say I decide I want to go visit some of my family up in the Chicago area. Now the second step is I got to look at what are my routes to get there. Now my challenge is that I've got 2 major routes I can follow from my little town of Jefferson City, Missouri, all the way up to the Chicago area. One is I can go through the northern part of Missouri, up through Hannibal, Missouri, and across the western part of Illinois towards Springfield, and then on up to Chicago. Or I can go right through the heart of downtown St. Louis and on up to Chicago. Now, depending on where I'm at and the time and route that I want to take makes a big difference on which direction I follow. If I'm going in the middle of a work day and I need to have good cell phone coverage so I can stay on top of the calls that I need to handle, this is a nice, beautiful drive up through western Illinois, but there's about an hour and a half of there where I have really spotty cell phone coverage. If I take the route through St. Louis, I'll have great coverage on my cell phone all the way, but if I don't time it just right, I'll hit rush hour in St. Louis and be stuck on the road for 2.5, 3 hours extra dealing with gridlock. So it's all about finding out what's the best path to take me from where I am to where I want to go, and that's what today's webinar is a big part of, is helping you choose the path to get you not only to the volume goals that you want to achieve, but make sure that that volume is sustainable long-term and that it's passive revenue that's being generated so you don't have to go out and hunt and kill everything every day. Then the next step is drilling down to the tactical level of the turn-by-turn directions. So to get us started today, I've asked one of the best speakers in the industry that I know, my good friend and mentor who I've had the great privilege and honor of getting to know over many years and working with very closely, who is probably one of the best people on the planet, industry or not, at helping you really capture and connect with what your true purpose and goal is in your business and in your life. So I've asked Mr. Rene Rodriguez to share with us some of the powerful information that he has about defining what your reasons why and your purpose for growth. So Mr. Rene, Beverly, if you can get this switched around to Rene's screen, and Rene, if you'll go ahead and get us started with your part of the program, that would be wonderful.
Thank you, Eric. This is Rene here. Just do a quick sound check. Am I sounding okay?
Sound great.
Perfect. Well, I want to welcome everybody to this webinar series, and thank you, Eric, for the introduction. This is an exciting topic. I think this is an exciting time for all of us in this industry and everybody here on this call. This is a time that you get a chance to redefine who it is that you are and what it is that you do, and more importantly, why it is that you do what you do. And I love the beginning of the year for asking these tough questions, because it's, whether or not it's cliche, whether or not it's what everybody else is doing, whether or not typically, most New Year's resolutions end up in failure, it's still a great time to ask these tough questions. And as Eric had mentioned, and some of the introductions had mentioned, I spent a lot of my time doing sales training, studying the brain and how this new brain research applies towards influence, how it applies towards managing change, managing stress, all those different pieces. And about 2 years ago, I was introduced to a concept that turned my world upside down, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you here today. And what's interesting is that none of it that I'm going to be sharing is really anything new. These questions aren't new, these concepts really aren't new, but the sequence in which they were asked is really what threw me for a loop, and really what, when I first saw it, I told everybody that I knew I'm just going to spend the next 10 years of my life devoted to understanding this process. And the good news is the process is also rooted in very fundamental brain research that I've been studying over the last, almost 18 years now. And it really comes down to this question of why. And the question is not just the why in terms of why we work, but why is it that some people are able to outperform others when they have access to the same facilities, the same resources? Why is it that some companies are able to outperform others when they have access to the same consultants, the same market, the same opportunity, the same everything that everybody else does, but for some reason, some of those people and some of those companies are able to consistently outperform the others? And why is it that Apple is consistently able to out-innovate their competitors year after year after year? And Apple's just a computer company, just like their competitors, but for some reason, people are willing to spend 2 and 3 times the price, willing to stand in line waiting for their newest product, willing to tell everybody about it and protect it as if it was their own baby. And yet they're still just a computer company. They have access to the same things that Dell and Gateway does, but for some reason, Apple has done something to stand apart. Why was it that Dr. Martin Luther King was able to get 250,000 people to show up that day, that specific day, when he wasn't the only great speaker of the time, he wasn't the only person in the civil rights struggle, and yet for some reason he was able to get 250,000 people to show up that day? Why is it that Harley Davidson is able to get people to permanently tattoo their logo on their body? Now, this is a motorcycle company, and I've never seen a Honda tattoo. And Southwest Airlines. Why is it that Southwest Airlines is able to get a zealot-like following by people that will do anything to fly Southwest and to remain a Southwest fan? I even heard stories of people sending checks for thousands of dollars right after 9/11 saying, "We hope that you stay in business." Why is that? And what you'll find about all 3 of these examples, or excuse me, all 4 of these examples that I shared, is that all of them, they all think, they all communicate, they all act, and they all behave in the exact same sequence. And it's a completely the opposite sequence that all the rest of us typically communicate. But before we get into what that sequence is and what it is that they really do, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. I believe that all of us on this call are in the world of influence. And there's so many different definitions of influence, but really, if you're in sales, if you're a teacher, if you're a mother, if you're a father, if you're pretty much anybody in life, we are trying to influence behavior, we're trying to influence thinking. And especially if we're in this industry, we're definitely trying to influence. And we're also fighting against other influences. And so I just want to make sure that we all understand that this is the context of which I'm trying to present today, is that my goal is that we understand a stronger way to be more influential at the end of this. And when it comes down to understanding influence, at least from a marketing perspective, there are really only 2 ways that we can influence. We can influence through manipulation. Now, manipulation carries with it a very negative connotation, a very negative stigma, but as you'll see when I define manipulation, it's something that we all engage in all the time. And the other way, of course, is to influence through inspiration, which clearly would be the preferred choice. But it's important to understand that our language says, well, this is what we want to do, is we want to influence through inspiration, but yet it was eye-opening for me when I realized just how often we engage in manipulative tactics to influence. So let's take a look at some of those manipulative tactics, or manipulators, if you want to call them. Price is a very simple one. I want you to ask yourself how many of you have ever lowered your price to get a deal done or to get a sale. I know I have. or fear. If we don't act now, this may be maybe what happens next. Or hey, interest rates are going to be lowered. Are they going to be going higher? We better act now. Fear is definitely another type of manipulator. Aspirational appeal is a great appeal. Hey, if you do this today, there's 6 easy steps to financial freedom. I think we've all heard of the 6-minute abs, something that it inspires some sort of quick response or quick something. What's interesting about aspirational appeals is that they typically appeal to those that have a level of insecurity about their confidence to be able to achieve that goal without some sort of quick route. Peer pressure is a great one. Hey, 4 out of 5 doctors recommend. Or, hey, all the greatest people, all the top producers are doing something like this, you should do. And novelty. This is one of the most common ones that we see. Novelty is that confusion of we think that we're being different, or we think we're differentiating when we're really just making novel changes. A great example is Colgate back in the 70s had only 2 brands of toothpaste. I think today there are upwards of 35, if not more, brands of toothpaste, and all just novel changes. A lot of times novelty gets confused with innovation, something that's truly, truly a game changer. And the last one, of course, is promotion. You know, buy 2, get 1 free. If you do this, then we'll do this promotion. So all of these are manipulators that we all tend to use in our business. It's something that I've taught, that they all teach. And the reality is that manipulators are very, very good, and they're perfect, actually, for driving behavior that is required only one time. If we lower the price, sometimes we'll get the deal. If we use the appropriate amount of fear to get something to act, people will probably act. If people buy into the aspirational appeal that we make, people will buy into it. Or peer pressure, or the novel changes. Hey, this is a new tweak. This is a new sexy feature that we're offering. Or even the promotions. We will get behavior to happen once. But the challenge is how many of us have always wanted to be in a business that we say we want to move beyond the transaction. We want to move beyond transaction. And I would even challenge you to move even beyond repeat business. Because you can get repeat business by having repeat manipulators or repeat promotions. But the challenge is once one of these manipulators goes away, guess what else goes away? The purchase goes away. So what I want to challenge us today is how do we move from manipulation to that inspiration, which really, when we get into that, and we're going to dive a little bit deep into it, that's when we get into customer loyalty. Loyalty is what happens when somebody says no to a lower price, to even possibly a better product, to say yes to you because they feel like they're in it with you. Take a look at the Southwest example. People sent them checks after 9/11 because they didn't want them to go down. They said, please stay in business. They felt like they were in it with Southwest. So the question is how many of your customers, your clients, your referral partners feel like they're in it with you? Or are they in it because you have the lowest interest rate right now? And if we're talking about strategies to move into a purchase business, and your strategy right now is you've got the lowest interest rate, then we can all kind of predict what might be the outcome when interest rates or that price/manipulator goes away. So what I want to show you is how we get beyond those things that happen and drive behavior only one time, and how do we move into a loyal customer referral partner relationship. So here's an example that drove it home for me of how manipulators really do not drive long-term relationships. I want you to think about the U.S. Postal Service or wanted reward of $50,000. So somebody says, if you give us information on the capture of this criminal, we will give you $50,000. Now, do you think that the law enforcement agency here is looking to build a long-term relationship with the informant or the witness? Of course not. They're saying, here's $50,000. You give us information. Get out of our life. There's nothing there built to create a long-term relationship, but yet it's a promotion. If you do this, we'll do that. Here's a simple one, the lost kitty. Do you think that the girl who lost her kitty or the young boy who lost their kitty is looking to build a long-term relationship with the person who found their kitty? Not at all. They're saying, here's a reward. I want my kitty. We move on with our lives. And the challenge, and what hit me so hard, was how different is that than most of the promotions that we engage in our business on a daily basis. So I want these questions to haunt you a little bit here. And it comes down to this specifically. And this is developed by Simon Sinek, which is a great book, which I'll introduce you to afterwards. And I highly, highly, highly recommend that you get his book because he outlines this in such a perfect, succinct, simple manner. And what he says is this is probably the world's most simplest model. And what he says is that there are 3 basic questions here. And the red is what, yellow being how, and the why being in the middle. And so defining these terms here, everybody typically knows what they do. In the red is, we know what we do, we know what we sell, we know what it is that we do. The good companies, the good salespeople, the top performers know how they do it, which would be another way of saying their unique selling proposition or unique value proposition. And they say, this is how we do it unique. This is what I do, and this is how I do it uniquely. But very few, very, very few understand why they do what they do. And so what's happened is that typically we've expected, we've been taught, if I tell people what I do and I uniquely tell them how I do it, that I would expect some sort of behavior, some sort of call to action. Maybe you vote for me, you'll buy from me, you'll join my team, you'll join my church, whatever it is. Here's what I do, here's how I do it, and we expect a behavior. And so let's illustrate what the challenge with that might be. Let's take a look at Dell and how they would communicate, because they're a computer company. And Dell, just like most companies, they communicate from the outside in. They begin with what, move into how, and don't really cover a why, but they expect a behavior. So Dell's message may sound something along like this. It says, we are a great computer company. And we do that by providing products that are custom designed to you at an affordable price delivered to your door. Do you want to buy one? I don't know. The response to me is, it's okay. I may want to know what the price is. I don't know. Let's pretend that we are a law firm, and we communicate the same way. Begin with the what, move into the how. So we're a great law firm, and we hire the best attorneys, send them to the best schools, and win most of our cases. Do you want to work with us? I don't know. Maybe. Do you have any references? I don't know. It's not inspiring yet. Let's pretend I'm a loan officer. I'm a great loan officer, and I work for a great company. And I offer the best interest rates, customer service, and I love my clients. Do you want to work with me? I don't know. I don't know. Nothing is inspiring just yet. And so when we ask these questions, this is how we typically speak from this what, how, and expect some sort of action. So let's take a look at how Apple communicates, because they're a great example. We all understand Apple. We can all understand, whether you're a fan of Apple or not, we can understand that Apple has done something pretty unique in the marketplace. Apple begins in the middle, and they begin with why. Their message, even though they're just a computer company, sounds completely different, and it says this. It says, we believe in pushing the bounds of the status quo in everything that we do. We do that by making products that are beautifully designed, easy to use, and user-friendly. We happen to be a computer company. Would you like to buy one? Now, I'll leave you with that for just a minute, just to ask yourself, how did that feel? Did you feel something different? Did you feel a sense of inspiration? I'm not talking about inspiring to change your life, but did you feel a sense of attraction to that message versus here's what we do, here's how we do it? See, what happens is, and the reason why that you felt that difference is because people do not buy what you do. They buy why you do it. Now, the reason why that's so challenging to understand sometimes is that we've been told is that this is what we sell, and people are buying what we sell. But the reality is what we sell is a computer. It's a Dell. We can buy a Dell. We can buy a Gateway. We can buy Apple. And arguably, they're comparable technologies. And in some ways, some people might even say that Dell technology or Windows technology is even more powerful. But yet, for some reason, people want to still buy Apple. And the reason it comes down to is that people don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. And here's a perfect example of it in what everybody here on the phone is here for. Is that the interest rates, everybody has access to the same interest rates, the what? The pretty much virtually the same product offerings. And there's some minor differences, but there are no monopolies out there. So the question is what is it and why is it that people would do business with one person over another? Now we use words like relationship, but what are relationships? Typically relationships are built around some common beliefs, some common understandings, some common things that people share, and those then tend to manifest into what we call a relationship, common values, all those things. And so what happens is when we learn to begin our conversations with why, we have now tapped into why what other people believe. Because a lot of times I was taught to say, hey, go out and do business with people that need what I have. But the reality is, now I've shifted my entire focus to do business with people who believe what I believe. Because if I do business with people who believe what I believe, then guess what? They may say no to another product, another service, something else that might be better to say yes to me because, you know what, we are in this together. Why do you think people showed up? 250,000 people showed up for Dr. Martin Luther King that day, not because of he was there. It had nothing to do with him. It had everything to do with his ability to articulate why everybody was there. So guess what? Everybody showed up for themselves. And so now these are drastic examples of what people believe and things like that. And you may be asking yourself, well, hey, I'm just a loan officer, I'm just a real estate agent, I'm just a manager. Well, the reality is we all have beliefs. We all have things that we believe in. And I'll give you an example. When we were at the Mortgage Success Source conference this last year, I presented this piece, and we said, let's do a live example of this. And so I stepped to the audience, and I said, okay, who would like to create their why live? And so one gentleman raised his hand, and I'm going to paraphrase sort of how I remember the event happening. And he said, I forget his name, but he said, okay. I said, sir, what is it you do? Let's begin with the normal process. And he said, well, I'm a mortgage banker. I said, great. What is it that makes you unique? What is your how? And he said, well, I like to educate my clients. I said, great. And I said, okay, so let's just ask a quick question. You're a mortgage banker and you like to educate your clients. Perfect. Let's just see how different that is, right? Let's ask the audience. How many people here like to educate their clients? We looked around the room, and about 90% of the hands went up in the air. And he looked around, and he said, and he sunk his head, and I said, don't be sad. Now, if you're thinking you're trying to differentiate, obviously you haven't differentiated through your language. But let me teach you something even more powerful. You haven't differentiated, but you've related. So if you're thinking through the lens of relating to people, let's look around. How many people have you related to? Now he begins to smile. He sees that there's some value there. But yet, where are we going with this? I said, okay, so now, here's what we have to learn. Your why is not something that we invent going forward. And so I want you guys to write this down. Your why is not something that you invent by looking forward. Your why is something that you uncover or discover by looking back upon your life. That's the big difference. A lot of times when we get into say, okay, what's going to make me unique, and you start looking forward to invent, but the reality, there are already many things unique about you and why you've chosen to do what you do. We just have to go back and look at what they are. So I said, okay. He said he likes to educate clients, and I said, okay, great. Out of all the things that you could have chosen to choose as your value proposition, you chose educating your clients. You could have chosen lowest price, best marketing, product knowledge, whatever it was, but you chose education. Why? And he looked at me and he says, I don't know. I said, let's think a little bit more. Why education? Is it important to your family? Now I'm going to give you the short version of this. And he stopped, he dropped his shoulders, he sunk his head, and he said, yeah, now I remember. And it was like the audience knew, you could feel the moment that somebody taps into their why. Even though he wasn't fully aware of what was going on, he had a memory of something. And he looked up at me and he said, Renee, he goes, my family's Jewish. And in our culture, in our family, education is extremely important to us. And I remember that I wasn't all that confident in school. I didn't feel all that confident in school. And I remember having to have a conversation with my father and telling him that, and wanting to tell him that, Dad, I'm going to quit school and move on to something else. And my dad was smart. He was a very smart man, and he looked at me, and he didn't allow me to quit. In fact, he gave me a different kind of school to attend, something that might fit my style. And I moved from the place of believing that education wasn't all that important into something that realized, how could I live my life without it? And I stopped him right there, and I looked around the audience. I said, okay, guys, did you hear it? And some heads were nodding. I think people knew something important was going on. And I said, okay. And I forget his name, but I told him, I said, okay, I'm going to repeat back your story in the way that you initially told me. You said, let's just say his name was John. My name is John. I'm a mortgage banker, and what makes me unique is I like to educate my clients. Would you like to work with me? That was the initial message. So, John, I'm going to tell you the exact same story that you just told me, but I'm going to shift the order, and I'm going to start with why and work my way out. You tell me if you hear a difference. So he asks me. I said, ask me what is it that you do, and I'm going to answer as if I'm you. And I said, well, so John, what is it you do? And my response was, I said, I'm glad you asked that question. See, my background, I'm Jewish, and in our culture, education is very, very, very important to me, and you can imagine it's very important to my father. And I remember that I actually struggled in school. It wasn't an easy thing for me. It was something that in fact, at one point in my life, I decided that I was going to quit. And thank God my father was smart enough to not let me quit and help me find a way to become very, very successful in school. And I remember the shift going from really honestly believing that education wasn't all that important to then the shift and the realization of how different my life would be if I wasn't properly educated, and the decisions and the poor decisions I would have made had I not. And I watched friends around me that didn't go through the motions of being and getting properly educated, and family members and the decisions that they made and the years that they had to pay for those decisions. And so I knew growing up that no matter what it is that I did, that I knew that education had to be a part of it. I knew that whatever it was that I wanted to be a part of was something that I wanted to take the extra time to make sure people had the information to be able to make the decision that was best for them, their family, and their goals. And so I decided to look at an industry that really needed the kind of attention that I was willing to give, and I looked at the mortgage industry. So currently I happen to be a mortgage banker working with XYZ Bank. You know, I'd love to have coffee with you at some point and learn more about your business. And of course at this point there was applause and people were happy, but the energy shifted. And I think even if you hear it, ask yourself, what is that energy that you feel internally? What is that emotional feeling that you feel as you heard me even just shift from that why, moving out to that what? And so as we do this, I want you to start asking yourself, what is it that you do? Great, you're a mortgage banker, you're a mortgage broker, whatever it is that you do, and then outline for yourself, what is that makes you unique? And once you identify the top 2 or 3, then ask yourself, why on earth did I choose those 2 or 3? Why is it that if I chose to be lowest price, well then then we got to it's a different market for that one. I think Walmart and Sam's Club and all those guys, they've kind of figured out how to do, and Costco, the lowest price, and it's not really the market I want to compete in. I think if you're on this call, I'm guessing that's not the market you want to compete in either. But ask yourself, of the unique selling proposition that I chose, why did I choose it? Ask yourself, where did I learn that? Did my parents exhibit something like this? Did I have a bad experience at some point with somebody not exhibiting this value proposition, and I vowed to myself that I would never want to give people that experience? Was I a kid and I was just so impressed with somebody that showed me this and I said I wanted to be like that? Whatever it is, I want you to go back and dive in deep and ask yourself, why? Why is it that I chose that one? So here's the book. Write it down, get it, audio, listen to it, Google him, whatever you want to do. The guy is a genius. And this is the book that this concept actually comes out of. And again, it's not the first time that this concept has been talked about, but he definitely has what I would believe to be the best articulation of it. And so I just want to tell you that this concept of the why, how, what isn't just something that's a theory. It's rooted in brain research. It's rooted in our biology and who it is that we are. And if we look at our brain, it has 3 major functions. And in 3 major systems that sort of evolve over time, and I don't have time to go into detail, but I'm just going to give you the real brief as to understanding why it is that people act and feel inspired when we change that order. That typically our behavior is not driven by this neocortex blue area, which is really what we call the human brain. Reptiles have this green part, which is charted for all of our autonomic functions, breathing, heart rate, digestion. Mammals like dogs and horses, all mammals have this limbic system, which now has emotions, values, and long-term memory. That's why dogs, when you pet them, they get happy, and reptiles, you pet them, they don't respond. It's not that they don't care; they just don't have the ability or the brain to respond. But we typically believe that this blue part, which is really what makes us human, reason, logic, language, all that stuff, is what drives behavior. But that's not the case. Behavior is driven at this red and green area here, down here. It's at the deep core part of our brain. That's where our cerebellum is, and where behavior and choices are made, decisions to buy into things, to buy into a church, to buy into a team, a company, a product line, whatever it is, it happens at this deeper level. And so when we begin speaking with this, we're beginning to speak directly to that part of the brain that deals with why, right here in the center. Now, this prefrontal lobe is a part of the neocortex, which deals with vision and things like that. But I want to focus really on this is why the why works, if you will. So again, some things to remember, and I've got about 10 more seconds here, but I just want you to remember that your why is not something that you invent by looking forward. Your why is something that you discover by looking back. So I challenge every single person on this call to outline what it is that you do clearly and and how it is that you do it uniquely. And then sit for a couple days or maybe a couple hours or whatever it is and ask your parents. Whatever it is, go back in history and ask yourself, why on earth did I choose that as my unique selling proposition? And what I'll tell you, if you can learn to speak from that discovery and share your story from that discovery, you will see a very different result of your meetings. You will see a sense of loyalty. You will see people that say, you know what, I believe in that too, and they will want to follow you. It's the same reason why Apple can sell us any product and we'll buy it. They'll let us buy. We buy our phones from them. MP3 players from a computer company. We buy them from Apple. We would never buy it from Dell or Gateway. Apple TV, flat screen TVs, all industries that these companies have failed at, but for some reason we'll buy it from Apple because we believe what they believe. If they had a lasagna, I'd probably buy their lasagna. It has nothing to do with the what. And so now, again, I challenge all of you to go back and ask yourself that question of why is it that I believe this, or why is it that I chose this? So I will end my section here and open it up for questions. I'm handed back over to Mr. Janesco for managing that. Thank you very, very, very much.
Well, thank you, Renee. Guys, as you're going in, Beverly, please, if you would switch it back to my screen in control here as well as I'm talking. I want you guys to be thinking about the kind of emotions and ideas and visions that Renee triggered with you. And so when it comes to thinking about how you want to transform and evolve your business and how you want to make different things happen in 2013 than you've made happen over the previous however many years you've been in the industry, I want you to really crystallize and think about what is the vision, the ultimate vision of what you'd like to create. And driven by that more intrinsic personal why that Renee just shared with you, connect with what you're truly passionate about. And the reason for that is when you find yourself working in the area of unique skill, unique passion, and unique talent is where you create the ultimate chance of success. And that's where radical growth can come from. So thinking about the value you provide to consumers and how you could be valuable to more people who could benefit from purchasing a home is some of the transition we're going to make right now. Now, the workbook that I've asked all of you to download, the action guide that we've provided to you, walks you through this planning process on a step-by-step basis. And it starts with that bigger picture purpose, the what's your why, what's your vision ideas that Renee just shared with you. So here's what I want you to do as you're, and if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and post those questions so that we can go ahead and get that link so that Renee can take a few minutes and answer or address some of the questions that you have. Behind the scenes, if you want to go ahead and download this book, or if you just want to make an appointment for yourself later today or later this week to start working through this process, the idea is about identifying what your ultimate vision for yourself is and what your ultimate vision for your clients is based on some of the ideas that Renee shared with you. And this worksheet will help you go through a very simple, easy thought process that will help you drill down on what that ultimate vision really is. So what I'd like to do at this point, like I said, is if you guys would like to go ahead and post some questions in the Q&A, you can post those either publicly or privately. If you want to ask Renee a question and you might be a little bit embarrassed about that, you want to make sure that, anyway, that if you guys would go ahead and start posting any of your questions about what your ultimate vision is. Okay, I'm seeing a number of questions coming through about where to get the resource guide. The action guide for it is available on the post. There is a link in the chat window that I've posted up, which is where you can download the three primary tools that we're going to be working with during the webinar, as well as some additional resources that will be available to you afterwards. As questions are starting to come in here, Renee, one of my bigger questions for you, and I guess I'll just kind of start the process off. I've heard you do this program multiple times. I've seen it in action, and for everybody who's on the audience here, I guess my biggest question for you, Renee, is as you go through this process, how do you know you've got it? How do you know you've really crystallized on what that perfect vision is?
Well, I would say first, I would probably eliminate the word perfect because that's probably one of my nemesises, and I keep a poster next to me that just says 80% on it because I tend to go for perfection, and that's what tends to slow me down. And I think that think about it as more of a discovery and a sequence. When you sit and you actually ask yourself that question of, because some people will say customer service, and I heard one person last month in the audience, and he said, because he said, I'll do what, I go, what makes you unique? And he said, because I'll do anything for my clients. And I said, interesting. I said, not everybody says that. why would you do that? He goes, I don't know. That's just who I am. I said, great. I said, why? He goes, I don't know. I said, well, think. And I usually will ask, well, your mom or your dad that way? And you watch, and the shift in body language when somebody taps into it is very evident. And the moment I asked that question, he stopped, and his eyes welled up, and he just said, my mom. I said, great, tell me more. And he said, my mom didn't have a car when growing up, but she showed up to every single one of my baseball games, and we lived 5 miles away. She never missed a practice. She never missed a game. And I always knew my mom would do anything for me. And I mean, we didn't have to talk any further than to understand where he learned that. And just imagine his story he gets to tell. And when people say, what do you do? I said, you know, my mom was a big influence on me. And he tells that story. And that now how he's illustrated that value, meaning his personal values, into his business, who wouldn't want to work with him? I don't care what he does. Sell insurance, real estate, mortgage. But somebody that with that powerful of a story, you want to follow because that's a value set that you believe in. And you believe the same thing. You want to be around it. And so the answer to your question, Eric, is when you ask the question, you'll know when you find it. And usually it's more than just one. We're made up of more than one story. That's the beautiful thing. When we take time to look at the stories and the influences that made us who we are now, and we learn to communicate those stories, that's when our life takes on a whole different meaning, and we're able to influence at a different level. But also we're able to work with the people who believe what we believe. And tell you, when you do that, life is just a lot better.
Definitely, definitely. All right, the next question that came across here, Renee, it posted, if you're burned out and no longer find pleasure as you used to in the business, can you offer some help in changing mindset back to how to find joy and passion for the business again versus just making a good living and struggling through?
Absolutely. I think you're identifying what doctors fall into, what community workers and social workers fall into, police officers. This is all work that begins very passionate, and doctors want to come out and save people's lives. Police officers want to protect and serve. Social workers want to change communities and families. And what ends up happening over time is that, you know, a lot of times they run up against a system, something bigger than them, and they start losing and forgetting what it is and why they begin. And in the book, actually, they call it the split. Their success sometimes requires them to get bigger and to do more things, and to shell off some of the emotion, and they move away from what it is that got them there. And what I've done with my clients in the past is really have them go through and explore why they began in the beginning. Go back to when they were younger. Why did they choose? Why did you choose to be a loan officer? What was it that made your choice? And I'm pretty much sure if it was just money, you're probably not in this business anymore. But there was probably something else. You wanted to help families. Maybe you identified that, wow, this is something that I truly get to help a family. And that's huge. I get to make memories. I've heard people have told me all sorts of reasons why, but I would urge you to go back to your first month and what was going on prior to you deciding to get in the industry, and ask yourself, why did you do it then? And then ask yourself, what got me away from that? And if you're so successful now that you're so successful that you're so busy now that it's moved you away from it, then I would say, well, what was the purpose of it? Wasn't it to have the ability to have some freedom to choose how you wanted to work? And so now is that time to make that choice, but you have to go back and remind yourself of why you got started.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, it's much like we've talked about, it's amazing, guys, those of you listening on the webinar, some of the examples that Renee does when he does this in a live workshop are just amazing. Some of the things. I mean, you know, some of the reasons that we've heard, you know, when we were out at the NAM National Conference a little over a month ago, and you were doing this workshop. Like, for example, I remember the one loan officer that was talking about his reason and passion was because he had seen his parents just get ripped up one side and down another and have a horrible, miserable experience in their mortgage process. And this was a kid who'd been in the industry, 18 months or something like that. And it was really cool to see that passion from him. You know, as we start looking at transitioning to the next phase of this program, just, you know, by the way, everyone, the questions that you've posted, and if you do still have questions that that you'd like to address by Renee, we're going to go ahead and move on with the program. We just don't have time to address everybody if we want to finish the program. But we are going to see those. Those are going to be captured in the log, and Renee will have a copy of those to be able to respond more directly to you if we're not able to answer your questions that you posted. Continue to post your questions for those of you listening on the webinar, or even those of you watching this on video later. Make sure you get in touch with Renee, and in fact, those of you who would like to connect with Renee, let me give the website one more time: www.followrenee.us. Whether you're looking at having him come out and do a live workshop for you, or doing more indirect small group or one-on-one work over the phone or whatever, I encourage you to reach out to him, and he'll be able to help you with some of those questions or answers. As we're moving on through the next of the program, now it's the idea of, once you have a better sense of that ultimate vision, once you have a clear idea of the difference you're trying to make and why you are pursuing this business and why you want to transition towards a higher volume of activity and a growth level, there's an internal vision and then there's an external vision, and that's what I talked about a few minutes ago. Not only is it important to know the vision for what you want to create for your customers, but then that becomes the catalyst that creates what you want individually as a mortgage practitioner. So the next thing we've got to then look at is, how do we continue to fuel that growth? If you want to reach a wider audience, if you want to be able to achieve a higher level of success in your own life, now it's time to start looking at some of the actual numbers or tactical goals. And at the end of the day, like Renee shared, if you are in a sales role, you're in an influence position, at the end of the day, it's a numbers game. We reach out to a group of people, we approach them, we share a message with them, we hope we create some awareness and interest, we bring it down to what are the real opportunities, and then we go from there. But at the end of the day, how many people do you have to talk to on a regular basis for you to be able to achieve your personal goals? So the next phase of what we're going to be doing is focusing on drilling down to the next level. And the way I like to articulate or explain this for just a second is, think about breathing for just a minute. Okay, now let's say you went to your doctor, he took your blood pressure, and he said, Joe, your blood pressure is just out of control. You've got to bring this down. And then he turned around and walked right back out of the exam room. One, you're probably looking to fire that guy and go to find another doctor. So, and then of course, so what happens is you go to the next doctor, and he takes your blood pressure and says, wow, Joe, this is really concerning. Your blood pressure is really high. Here's what I need to do, though. We need to figure out if this is just a temporary stress-related thing, or if there really is something deeper going on. So what I want you to do is, I want you to do some breathing exercises for me. I want you to take a slow 3-count in-breath and 3-count exhale. In fact, for all of you on the webinar, why don't you go ahead and do this with me for just a second. Let's do in, out. Okay, so the doctor says, all right, Joe, I want you to do this a couple more times. I want you to repeat this pattern. I'm going to dim the lights. I'm going to go check on another patient for about 10 minutes and put on some calm music for you. Just take a second to continue this exercise, and I'll come back and check on you in a few minutes, and we'll see where we're at. So he steps out of the room, comes back about 10 minutes later. You've done the exercise, and lo and behold, your blood pressure is a lot lower. Now, how does that apply to what we do in sales? I mean, at the end of the day, the first doctor, the doctor who angered you, gave you a suggestion or a goal, but didn't tell you how to accomplish it. The second doctor told you basically to do the same thing, but he gave you the tools and the system and the strategy to do it. And that's what made the difference. So, at the end of the day, if I asked all of you to do, 20 loans tomorrow, do you know how to do it? Probably you know the mechanics of how to do it, but can you make it happen in 10 days or less? So the next question then becomes, okay, what volume of leads do we need to generate to consistently reach the volume of closings that we need that turn into the income that we desire to make to fuel our personal goals at a level of customer service that we want to fuel? And so all of that is personal decision. So this gets into the second part of the conversation, which is the volume and goals exercises that I've provided to you, at the end of the day, there's two parts to a volume goal, and that's what the breathing of a successful and productive and profitable mortgage practices. And it's not just, by the way, about just making money for money's sake. That doesn't create the motivation. It's the stuff Renee talked about first, 30 minutes, 40 minutes for a program here that make the difference. It's about what that money gives you in your ability to provide a consistent, reliable lifestyle for yourself, your family, and your children. It's about the opportunities that it creates for you to provide service to your community through charitable or philanthropic efforts or donations or those kind of things. It's about the influence that's created for positive benefit with your clients and being able to help more people at a deeper level because you've achieved a higher level of success and therefore have a more freedom in your environment to do some of those things that make a huge impact on your community. And so the next layer of this is let's take a look at what you want to create for yourself. These spreadsheets are very, very simple. Now, there's two parts to this that I want you to focus on. The first one is what's kind of your minimum monthly standard. Throughout the months of 2013, where do you want to be as far as total volume? And this is something that I want you to think about kind of like a company budget plan. Okay, this is sort of the minimum standard that I need to be achieving every month as far as unit volume and dollars. So, just let me walk through the numbers with you really quickly. Let's say you want to make $200,000 a year. $200,000 a year works out to what, $16,000, $17,000 a month in income, right? Okay, so if I'm in a community where my average loan amount is $180,000, if I'm set up with a comp plan that I'm going to make 150 basis points per loan, that means I need to close 74 loans throughout the year of 2013 to make my income goal, which means I need to be basically funding 6 loans a month. Now, if my conversion ratio is 50% from lead to closing, and if you're not sure what your conversion ratio is, one real good way to look at it is go back into your loan origination system, look at how many applications you took in 2012 and how many loans you closed in 2012. Won't be that exact, but it'll give you a decent ballpark. Okay? So what this comes down to, and this is the important part of this worksheet, is at the end of the day, I need to generate 3 leads a week to hit those income goals. Now, the biggest cliche in goal planning and strategy is, the old cliche of how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time is the answer, right? But the problem is if you wait till October 1st to start eating, are you going to finish the elephant by the end of December? Likely it is probably not. So the reality is we've got to start now with setting a minimum standard of activity of how many bites we need to eat per week, and are we or are we not on pace? And that's a big part of what this planning to win process is about. It's about identifying what the daily march, what the weekly targets are for activity that produce the ultimate results. It's that breathing that we discussed a few minutes ago. So the leads of 3 a week, by Thursday at noon, if you're looking at your log and you don't have 3 solid leads by noon on Thursday, well, you've got a day and a half to make up for it. And you can do some supplemental marketing to shore it up. The second thing that I want you guys to do as you look at how to create your success plan for 2013 is I want you to challenge yourself to stretch to a radically different level. And the reason for that is because of the fact that the minimum maintenance standard is important from the perspective of this is where I want to make sure I am every month. But the reason that we want to look at the monthly goals tab of this spreadsheet that I've provided for you is because we want to dream a little bit. We want to challenge you to think multiples of 3 to 5 times what you did last year. And some of this came as a result of some recent conversations. This time of year with our active clients and one-on-one coaching, we spend a lot of time going over the volume goals and those kind of things. And one of the things we constantly challenge our clients to think about is dreaming a lot bigger, thinking a lot bigger. And the reason for that is, you can grow your business 20 to 30% year over year by working a little harder and a little smarter. But you can't grow your business 300 or 400% year over year without making radical restructuring and adjustment to the way you run your business on a daily basis. So the next layer of this process is to use this monthly goals focus tab to focus on where you want to be from an income and revenue standpoint at the end of 2013. And then look at, actually, it's not as hard as it sounds. So like, for example, if I wanted to triple that revenue, if I wanted to go from that $200,000 a year to $50,000 a month, which $50,000 a month works out to what, $600,000 a year in revenue? If my average loan amount is $200,000 and I'm at 150 basis points commission, that means I need to do 17 loans. So I've got to figure out how to get from 6 loans a month to 17 loans a month. But when it comes down to lead generation, it's only an extra 5 leads a week. It's only an extra 1 lead a day that makes the difference between $15,000 a month in income or $50,000 a month in income. Now, the other thing that comes along with that is just thinking about the man hours involved in the complexity of today's lending environment. It's very impractical to think about doing 17 loans a month, just you by yourself as an individual mortgage practitioner with no support resource or no support staff. So that becomes the catalyst to bring this to the next level. Now, the second part of this is as we look at defining what kind of lead generation goals we need to make, and the priority here, or the emphasis here, is on generating that volume of leads in a way that you don't have to go out and hunt for it every single month, starting every month at 0. And this is where we talk about building sort of an annuitized business. By the way, there's a version of this you can download from the tools link that you can walk your agents through this same concept, this whole idea of, how many leads, how many people do I need to talk to on a daily basis or a weekly basis to hit the income and volume targets that I want to hit for myself. So now not only do you do this for yourself, you start thinking about, how do I help do this? How do I work together with business development partners like realtors or financial planners or CPAs or people who are human resource director for local companies in your market that have 50 to 100 employees? How do I work with those business development partners to help them reach out to the people that are in their sphere? Because here's the thing. It may be a little more difficult. It's a lot more difficult for me to go out and find 8 leads a week consistently every week. But it's a lot easier if I can go out and find 4 people who I can help find 2 leads for each of those 4 people each week, which turns into a total of 8 leads for that team. Does that make sense? So the way that we approach this is we don't have to do it all by ourselves. We can work with our business development partners. Now, in this 5-phase planning process, which I'm going to skip through very quickly, in your action guides, you've got some tools that are going to help you identify 2 key things. One, once you know what the target is, let's say the target is 8 leads a week. Yes, there's going to be some challenges and obstacles. One of the bigger ones being, how do I find 8 people a week and make sure that I do that consistently? How do I find the time to find 8 people a week who could benefit from buying a home? Well, the next step of that is we've got to shift our thinking to the solutions side of things. So when we start thinking about solutions, we got to think about how people can benefit. Why does a customer care about buying a home or not? So one of the things that I've often said is if we find a need, we can find a lead. Now, part of the reason for this is, and we're going to talk a little bit about the mental concepts of looking for opportunities and being solutions-oriented. Long story short, it's what I call the yellow Honda effect. I had a good friend in college. His name was Brian. Brian was totally fixated on this idea of buying one of these yellow Honda S2000s like you see on your screen right now. The problem was that nobody wanted to hang out with Brian anymore because it was like you couldn't drive anywhere with Brian without him pointing out a couple of these things along the way. It got kind of annoying. But how many of you have had that experience? The car you really want or the car you just bought all of a sudden appears to be the only car on the road. And why is that? Well, the cool thing about it is it's part of that brain mechanics that Renee shared with you earlier. There's a specific part of our brain that's programmed to bring to our attention what we're already thinking about. So the other part of being able to realize change and create productive results, even thinking about radical change, 200, 300, 500% growth year over year, is about looking for the solutions. And it may not seem possible, but what would it look like if it was? And challenging yourself to ask the solutions means your brain's going to bring to your attention more ideas, strategies, and solutions, and the obstacles seem less important. So when we start thinking about the obstacles of finding more buyers, the first thing I want you to think about is who needs you. Asking the question, who could benefit from buying a home in the current market? So as we do this roundtable and as we think about and as we talk to industry leaders, there's a couple of key areas that are going to remain stable regardless of the interest rate environment. And even if rates do go to 5.5% to 6%, it doesn't mean people are going to stop buying houses. It just means people are going to buy slightly less expensive houses in most cases. So it's not going to cripple the market, and I don't think there's much industry expectation that interest rates are going to skyrocket into the 8s, 10s, or beyond, that we may see a surge this year of going into the mid-5s to mid-6s based on the economic climate. But what are the people that can benefit? So think about it. The renter who's paying $1,000 a month in rent and is literally flushing $60,000 every 5 years down somebody else's toilet, as opposed to building equity for himself and his family. Think about the family who hasn't bought a home, during this time of unprecedented home affordability, because they bought a home 5 or 6 years ago, 2006, 2005, probably paid a little bit of a premium for the property, and they bought it with a loan that was an interest rate in the 6s instead of in the 4s. So even though they outgrew that home a couple of years ago, they haven't moved because they're thinking with 2006 dollars and how much house they can afford versus 2013 dollars and how much house they can afford. And how much more buying power does a consumer have in the current market versus 5 years ago? And then the stuff that's always going to be there, relocation, stable employee move-ups, investors. The whole idea here is what we want to try and create is a business model that grows organically. It's what we call the critical mass concept. This comes from the idea of nuclear science. Nuclear science, the concept of critical mass is, it takes hundreds of thousands of kilowatts of energy to throw a couple of little tiny microscopic particles at each other. When those two collide and explode, it creates a chain reaction or a nuclear reaction. The point at which that the energy inside the reaction is enough to continue to fuel and sustain the growth of that reaction is what is called critical mass. So helping you create the kind of self-perpetuating growth is what's going to help you transform your business from one of doing 5 to 6 loans a month to one of doing 12 to 15 loans a month. It's the concept of thinking about how we go from 5 or 6 loans a month to 12, 12 to 18, 18 to 24, 20, and so on and so forth. So there's some key ideas that I want to share with you, and I'm going to ask Greg to share a little bit more about how to create radical growth in just a minute. But ultimately what it came down to, and somebody asked me recently how I went, when I was in retail origination, was from when I was on my own as a loan officer for the first time in August of 1998. I originated until August of 2012 in two different markets. But I literally doubled my business year over year, 4 years in a row. I went from 30 loans the first year, plus or minus, to 60 or 70 loans the second year, to 130 to 140 the third year, and then to 237 loans is what I closed the last 12 months I was originating. And the reason I did that is because I went out and built partnerships. I went out and built business development partnerships with agents and financial planners and CPAs that fed me a consistent flow of leads. When I was closing 5 or 6 loans a month, I was generating 12 to 15 good solid leads with 5 to 6 good solid business development partners. The second year, I went out and built 5 or 6 more and kept the 5 or 6 happy that I built the first year. And that's how I doubled my business year over year for 4 years in a row. At the end of the day, what we're looking at, though, is how we connect with what people most desire and what's most beneficial to the consumers that we can help through housing. And teaming up with our business development partners to dig through the tons of rock and dirt and filter it down to the nuggets of value that make a real difference for families. Because when you think about the typical family buying their first home, how much of a financial impact does that have on that family's ability to grow or build wealth for the family or reach a better financial future? You know, eventually they'll have a property that is worth several $100,000 after 30 years of payments on buying a home versus 30 years of payment on rent. They'll have an asset that's worth several $100,000. How important of a financial catalyst is that for helping people get to where they want to be financially? So things that we can do along the way, a couple of simple, easy tactics, for example, that we could apply, is think about how we ask for referrals. And by the way, there's some shifting in language that I've been working on recently. I'm trying to move away from the taking side of life, the reaching out and asking for a handout, a referral, or going to a referral partner like a realtor. It has that sort of, you know, hey, Mr. Realtor, why don't you give me a lead type of a feel if I'm asking for referrals. But what about service opportunities? Well, what about building business development partnerships? In other words, Mr. Agent, I want to get together and let's brainstorm some ideas about how you and I can reach more consumers in the market who could benefit from homeownership. That you and I can work together as a team to leverage each other's strength to reach and help more families. I don't necessarily even want your referrals to begin with. I would like to talk about how you and I together can build a synergistic partnership that helps a much larger group of families than we would either be able to help on our own. But how do you guys ask for referrals? Do you ask, do you know anybody who might benefit from buying a home? Or do you ask, who do you know? One key tip or idea that I can share with you that you could use and that you could teach your agents to use very, very quickly, and then I want to transition on to the next layer of this program. But think about it from the idea about being passionate or service. So when you're talking to your existing customers, or when you're reaching out to customers that you've worked with over the previous couple of years, and you're having a reconnect conversation with them, why don't you think about adding one additional conversation, the passionate about sharing and who questions conversation. You know, Mr. Customer, at the end of the day, as you can realize, there's an unprecedented housing opportunity in the current market. Some of the greatest opportunities for people to be able to obtain a home or move from one home to a nicer home, we're dealing with literally the best affordability of homes in American real estate history. The problem is that the people who are most likely to benefit are likely the people who are most unaware of it, or least likely to be aware of it. So what I'm really passionate about doing this year is reaching out to those people and sharing with them what potential opportunity exists for them to benefit from the market, and about serving that need or opportunity to help them make a decision about whether it's right for them to go from renting to buying, or from the home they're in to a bigger home. And I'd like to enlist your help in this service project. Is that okay? So let me ask you a couple of key questions to get your thinking, okay? Who do you know that has a stable job and has been renting for the last couple of years in the same place? Do you work with anybody like that? Do you have a good friend? Do you know anybody at church? Et cetera, et cetera. Another key example of people who are most likely to benefit but probably unaware of the opportunity are the people who are just really busy. People who bought a house 5 to 6 years ago, they've had a couple of additional kids, but they're still in that old, single, starter, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,200 square foot home. They've obviously outgrown it, but yet they haven't upgraded the property because they're afraid of the cost of it, because they're thinking with 2006 dollars versus 2013 dollars. So anyway, it's these types of questions that can create the catalyst for the type of conversation that you want to have. And how do you communicate that message to a much bigger audience in a much shorter period of time? Well, a couple of different ways that we do that. One of the best ways that we encourage our clients, our coaching clients, to use is through a system that's included in our coaching program called Platinum Marketing. It's an easy, simple, it's probably the easiest, quick fire. You load your database, flip the switch, turn it on, and let it run type of top-of-mind awareness marketing. It's also a great system for getting this type of messaging out to your sphere of influence in a very efficient way to help them think about the exposed opportunities. The third and final strategy that I want to share with you guys is what you and your business development partners can do to reach out and re-engage with past or potential clients by doing what we call a home opportunity evaluation. It's simply offering them the opportunity to participate in something very similar to what you see financial planners doing. You know, hey, let me take a look at your portfolio and see if I can suggest any changes that would produce a better result. Well, that conversation is not that much different than working with your business development partners or real estate agents to reach out to the, let's say they've closed 100 transactions over the last 5 years, 15 to 20 deals a year. That's 100 people who know a lot of people who are renting or buying or living in a home that's too small or had to relocate because of a job change and they still have an ugly commute. There's all these people out there who could benefit from this housing opportunity that are completely unaware of it. So just as simple as teaching your agents how to pick up the phone and call their past clients and say, hey, I just wanted to spend a few minutes with you, check in with you, see if your house is meeting your needs still. If not, look at what we could do to help you take advantage of this incredible housing market right now. Is that okay? Do you have a few minutes for us to kick some ideas around? Now, if your agent's just called one past client a day, what's the likelihood of them not producing 3 to 5 solid leads a month for themselves that they didn't have prior to meeting with you? So with that in mind, I'm going to transition a little bit here. I'm going to give it's just an opportunity if there's any quick questions about today's section or the part of the program that I've talked to you about how to go through this planning to win exercise, developing your volume goals, and beginning to decide the strategies that you're going to use to reach the volume of leads that you want to generate for yourself or with your business development partners. So go ahead and take just a few seconds. If you have any questions about this particular section, go ahead and get them posted in. As I'm walking forward with this, also Beverly, Jennifer, if you guys want to get Greg queued up to get started here in just a few seconds. I know we're a little bit behind schedule in what we had outlined to begin with. But you guys, if you have any questions regarding this section, go ahead and get them posted. I guess the first one I can address very quickly. Will the slides from this presentation be available? Yes, the slides are going to be available from today's program. In fact, it's on the same link that we've posted already. Okay. Yeah, there were some questions. By the way, with the volume goals exercises, it's all based on you. It's all based on your market. So dial in on what's specific. By the way, there are ways to target and strategically look at working with the higher end elements of the market. We can talk a little bit more about that maybe offline. Okay. Any other questions from this particular section of the program? All right. Okay. All right. So with that in mind, like I said, we will be responding to the questions as they come through, and we will be moving. We will be able to address and follow up with those questions after the webinar. If you do still continue to have questions about the process of identifying your volume goals and determining the preliminary strategies you want to use for you and with your business development partners, feel free to go ahead and post it in Q&A as the next part of the program moves on. At this point, there's a special program that I've asked Greg Frost to share with us. And the reason that I've asked Greg to do this program is because at some point we reach a level that we cannot pass based on our own individual efforts. You know, whether it's the 5 or 6 loans a month mark, and because it's just us and we're doing everything. We're doing all the marketing, we're doing all the lead conversion and sales, we're doing all of the processing, packaging, and underwriting. That's totally on our shoulders. or whether it's you've got a great processor that's provided by your company and you're doing 10 to 12 loans a month, but you need to figure out how to, if you want to take it to that next level, if you want to get past that 17, 18, 20 loans a month. So part of the reason I asked Greg to join us for today's program is I wanted him to give you a snapshot of what it looks like to do phenomenal volume, because I want you guys to realize how actually easy it is in all reality. Because, I mean, I don't know anybody better than sharing this message. So at this point, Greg, if you're ready to go here, I'm going to turn things over to you. And I know you've got some great stuff to share.
I just wanted to say we did have a poll question that we wanted to post before Greg speaks. So I'm going to go ahead and post that right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Beverly.
No problem. So the question is, what is your current monthly unit funding volume? And the choice is 3 to 5, 6 to 10, 10 to 15, or 15 plus. If you could vote on that now. Okay, and I'm just going to give you a few more seconds to vote on that, and then we're going to close the voting. Okay, I'm closing the voting, and I'm going to share the results with you. So the results, 56% said 3 to 5, 30% said 6 to 10, 8% said 10 to 15, and 6% said 15 plus. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Greg.
Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, good. Got the headset on. I want to make sure it was working. Thanks, everybody, for inviting me today. I really enjoy being a part of this. And now I see from the statistics who I'm talking to. I'm talking to people that are doing 3 to 5 and 5 to 10. And how do you take that? Let's talk about capacity. First off, let's understand that you always want to, and Beverly, let me stop for a second. I'm getting some tremendous feedback here. Is there any switch you can flip? Let me let Jennifer listen to this and see if she knows what's going on.
I'm hearing a little bit in your background. I don't know if maybe it's your headset.
Yeah, there's a little bit of an echo.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anything to be done.
Okay, well, I just got the, excuse me, I'm trying to put this thing back on. I just got the shake head. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm going to work through it. Okay, it's all about the number of units. The first thing you have to understand is how many units are you currently doing, and then how many units do you want to do. But before you can decide how many units you want to do, you've got to look at your current capacity. All right, what is your current capacity? What can you do right now? What can you increase right now without having to add anybody or anything? What do you think your current capacity is? And are you there? If you're not there, you've got your first number to be, let me do what I need to do to fill this excess capacity that I have now. All right, with regard to building your business, what can you do? Let me give you a couple of ideas. If you'd like to double your business tomorrow, take each and every one of your current referral partners out to breakfast or lunch and talk to them and ask them if they know anybody in their real estate office or their builder site who has like core values to them and who's somebody they think might enjoy doing business with you. I used to do that the first 2 months of every year. The first 2 months of every year, I'd go and I'd sit down with everybody that referred me a loan the previous year and ask them if they knew anybody that they thought might like me like they like me, and that I might like I like them. And I always, we always found somebody. They could think of somebody. And when they did, I would simply ask them if they would introduce me. And I said, how about introducing me at another breakfast or lunch, whatever we were at. And I'd ask them to bring them. And I said, I'll pop for lunch, and can we coordinate a luncheon with you and this person and myself? And so we'd sit down, and they'd come, and I'd greet them, and And the real estate agent or builder, the referral partner, would know why they're there. They're salesmen. They get it, and they put their salesman's cap on. And I get like a 12 to 14-minute infomercial by my referral partner of mine, telling this person that they brought to lunch how great I was and why they did all their business with me and how they wanted me to meet them, et cetera, et cetera. And I just kind of sit there and be all bashful and aw shucks, you know, and be grateful and blush a little and explain to them that, well, in fact, the reason why we were getting together today was because my referral partner had indicated to me that you were one of the rising stars of this office, or you were one of the top producers in this office, somebody that I should really know and somebody that I would enjoy doing business with. And I butter them up, and I would talk to them about them. I explained to them a little bit about me, but say, let me learn a little about you. And I'd start asking questions during the breakfast. I wouldn't try to sell them. I just try to find out about them. And in the spirit of the Cialdini influence book, which I'm a student of and I'm a certified trainer in, I would try to find likenesses that we have via questioning to see if I couldn't determine that this person was like me. And if this person was like me, and I was almost always able to find some similarities. We either knew somebody, went to the same school, our kids went to the same school, we went to the same church, we came from the same state, we liked the same sports. There's something that you can find with everyone that will develop a likeness. And as Cialdini says in Influence, if you can find a likeness, people like to do business with people like them. So what you have to do is you have to find a way that you become like them through basically questions and answers. So I would basically find out who they are, where they came from, how long they've been in the business, what did they do before they got into real estate, how many kids do they have, where did they go to school, do their kids like sports, do they like sports, what are they involved in, and we'd find out about one another and have nice conversation for the rest of the breakfast or lunch. At the end of the period of time, I wouldn't try to close them or sell them. I would say, let me ask you something, just a little bit about our business. Who are you currently using as your mortgage resource? Now, no matter who they said, I don't care if it was Attila the Hun, I would tell them that, well, that's a real nice guy, and they work for which company? Yes, that's a good company. I don't care what company it was. That's a good company. Well, let me ask you a question, just one mortgage question. If you could have a perfect situation with regard to your mortgage experience, what would you want that you don't have now? Is there anything lacking? Is there anything that would just make a perfect situation for you? What I try to do is give them permission to say something bad about their current mortgage person and without saying something bad, okay? And I always go to them every meeting that I have with a notebook, and I take notes as we talk. And I really like people to see that I care enough about the questions that I'm asking and the answers that they're giving me in order to write down their answers. And people are very impressed with that. They think you're very professional and you're interested, truly interested. So I will do this and I will write down. And what ends up happening is that they think of one and then they think of another and sometimes even three. Well, I'd like this or this or this. And I write this down. Well, thanks for sharing this with me. And I'll tell you what I'd like to do, if you don't mind. I'd like to take these notes home, noodle on them for a day or two, and then I'd like to give you a call and invite you over to my office. I'm kind of proud of our office, and I kind of like to show it off. And if you've got the time, come on in, and I'll address some of these issues and show you some of the things that I think we do that might be of interest to you. And let you see how the process works, where your customers will come, where they'll sit, who they'll see, who processes my loans, who underwrites my loans. Everybody's right here, and I'd love to introduce it to you. Would you have time to do that if I call? Sure. And so that's how I would take one realtor and have them refer me somebody in their office, get to know that realtor at a breakfast or lunch appointment, schedule another appointment. I wouldn't schedule it right then, but I would tell them I'm going to have my assistant call you, etc. and then get them to come into my office. You see, part of the sale and part of the little tidbits of commitment that we gain from people is little things that we don't think about. And one of the little things is actually getting that realtor or that builder to come to your office, find your office, pull into the parking lot, see where it is, come into the lobby, experience the lobby, and then go into I have interview rooms, and I invite them into an interview room and chat with them a little bit before we make our little trek around the office. And so you've broken down a very initial barrier of, I don't know where you are, I don't know how to get there, I'm walking into a strange building, I'm looking at strange people, I'm talking to people I don't know. You get that all out of the way by inviting them over to see you. And it's amazing, but it softens the situation to where they feel more comfortable suggesting that somebody get a hold of you. Now, I know a lot of people don't do business in the offices anymore. They do business by phone. We in the mortgage business have found every stinking way we can not to have to engage people on a person-to-person basis. And we insist that it's to their liking and their wanting, but I'm going to tell you something. When people are borrowing a couple $100,000, I really believe they'd like to sit in front of you and talk to you and see who they're talking with. But we in the mortgage business have found ways to avoid that at all costs, and I'm just not one of those guys. I really believe in a face-to-face, belly-to-belly encounter. And I think that if you can get them to come to your office and get them to meet with you, you'll gain their trust, you'll break down barriers, and you'll have a better opportunity to have them refer you somebody, okay? So that's how you take the referral partners that you have right now and turn them into twice as many referral partners, and you just keep asking, and then of course it's all a multiple. If you have 5 realtors who are currently referring you business, we all know that, you know, you got a great realtor if they have 1 buyer a month. You know, most realtors don't do 24 transactions a year. Most of them do less than 24. Well, a realtor that does 24 transactions a year, half of their sales are listings sold, half of them are buyers represented, so they really only have 12 potential referrals for you. And the reality of that 12 is they probably only control referring 70% of them because somebody has a mother, somebody's got a guy, somebody's in a reload deal. So 7 of the 12, 8 of the 12 would be good. So how many referral partners do you need to have? So when you're sitting there right now, you're taking notes, I hope, be clear, concise, and honest with yourself. How many realtor partners do I have now? How many can I hope for them to refer me? Well, there's some lists available. You can go to most MLSs and you can pull up the production of realtors. Or you can have a friendly realtor pull it up for you and share it with you. And the MLSs break down the production by buyer-controlled sales and listings sold. So we're developing our list for 2012 or 2013 right now. Jennifer, my assistant, I've gone through the list. I've identified the top 50 realtors in our marketplace by the number of buyer-controlled sales that they do. So I now know which 50 realtors in my marketplace are most important to me. Well, guess what? I'm going to ask my current realtor referral partners, are you close to any of these people? Are you close to this person? Could you get them to breakfast or lunch with me? I'd really like to meet them. So we know who our hit list is, all right? So once you gather this information and you begin this program of doubling the number of referral partners that you have now, you can then double it again. You go back next January, you go back to the well again, and you started with 5 referral partners. Next January, you've got 9 referral partners. You get those 9 to bring you 9 people, and hopefully you sign up 5, 6, or 7 of those to start doing business with you. And this is how you take what you've got right now and double it. Another way of taking what you got right now is working the listing agent on every transaction that you're currently working in your drawer. That listing agent is probably one of the better producers in your marketplace by virtue of the fact that they have an inventory of homes. Most realtors that are good realtors have a sizable listing inventory. Your best realtors in any marketplace have a sizable listing inventory. So the listing agent on every single transaction that you're working now should be of top priority for you to convert to one of your realtors. How do you do that? Very simple. Get out there during the course of the transaction and treat them as if they were the referring agent. Treat them as if they're the most important real estate agent in your town. Show them during the course of processing your loan exactly what they can expect from you when they refer you business, and make it a fantastic experience. You want to actually treat them better, the listing agent better on every transaction than you do the selling agent. You've already sold the selling agent. You're courting the listing agent. So do all the things you would normally do when you're courting somebody. All of you out there know that when you courted your wife, when you courted your husband, if you were on that end of the deal, you were putting your best foot forward. You were going overboard. You were agreeing to just about anything. You were doing anything you could to make them happy. Do that to the listing agent on every transaction. Court them, court them, court them, and then sign them. Get them on your side. So that's another way for you to take every transaction and turn every deal into another opportunity to increase your referral business by virtue of another realtor. Okay, so those are two ways to do that. But anyway, getting back to capacity. So if you do all of that, you start doing that, like tomorrow after listening to this, and you go out and you get 5 or 6 or 7 more real estate agents who are going to bring you some business. Do you have the capacity on your team to handle that business? Are you organized personally yourself to be able to handle twice as much business as you're doing now? And if you're not, you need to be able to identify that, and you need to get yourself organized. I got people out there doing 4 or 5 loans a month, and they want a personal assistant. I laugh at them. Are you kidding me? 4 or 5 loans a month, I'm sorry, but that's hardly a full-time profession. Okay, now if you want to double your business from what you're doing now and get to the 10 to 15 number, well, the first place to look on organizing yourself is within. The first thing to look at is, what time do I get up every morning? What do I do first thing every morning? Do I put something good into my brain? Do I read some industry publications, or do I read some self-help, self-improvement books? Do I start the day with a positive attitude? Or do I just lollygag around, and do I waste time? Do I have a breakfast meeting with a realtor or builder every single day of the week? Do I have a luncheon meeting with a builder or realtor every single day of the week? Am I out there meeting people? Have I developed a list from the board of realtors of the top realtors that I want to do business with? And am I reaching out to them? Am I on Facebook friending these people so that they see me? Am I on LinkedIn friending these people so that they see me? Am I doing any kind of communicating things that are going on in the industry via flyer or an email to these people so that they know who I am, and so that I start to establish my authority in the industry, that they can perceive and they can hold me in a higher light? What am I doing? What am I doing each and every day to expand my horizons and do more business? The best thing for you to do is to understand currently, what are you doing, and more importantly, what are you not doing that you should be doing? And if you can identify those things, you can be honest with yourself, and you can check them off your list. Okay? Now, current team size, excess capacity today, how much do you have? And then what will it take to fill that excess capacity? All right? Let me give you a few numbers that have worked for me over the years and still continue to work in my business. As I develop, I've got a big company now. I've got lots of loan officers. I've got lots of processors. I got assistants. I've got setup clerks, and it's all grown to be this big deal, right? But really, it started with me and one loan processor, okay? And me and one loan processor worked together, and until I started doing about 15 loans a month, 15 closings a month now. And you all know that if I had 15 closings a month, we probably had 25 loans in process at any given time. So over the course of a year, we had 300 loans in process, and we closed 180 of them. And that's about how it works, depending on your referral sources and the quality of your pre-quals and your applications. Okay? So from my perspective, one loan officer plus one loan processor equals 15 fundings. You want to get above 15 fundings, and you can adjust this however based on the investment you want to make in developing a team. One loan officer, plus one personal assistant, plus one loan processor can take you to 20 plus, 22, 23 loans a month if you're willing to get in there and help your processor a little bit, or if your personal assistant is willing to get in there and help your loan processor a little bit with shagging documentation, all right? But I have loan processors on my teams right now that can put out 22, 25 loans a month on a regular basis with help from my personal assistant. I mean, that's reality. And even with this crazy documentation world that we live in, we're still able to do that. I go right downstairs and look at 3 loan processors that can all do 20 plus fundings a month, okay? And 25, 28, 30. Now they can't do 30 every month. They'll go crazy. But they hit it. They'll hit it 2 or 3 times a year, okay? One loan officer plus one personal assistant plus one loan officer plus one personal assistant plus 2 loan processors should get you to 35 fundings a month. Now again, you can add people if you want to, but this is what should work economically for you. To get above 35 fundings a month, one loan officer plus one personal assistant, 2 loan processors plus a setup clerk, somebody to assist them at setting the file up and shagging docs. Well, I've seen the numbers that we're dealing with there, and I see the production that you've got there. I can take it and I can run it up. One year I had 4 loan processors, a setup clerk, a personal assistant, and a realtor liaison, because I wanted to have one particular person just to deal with the realtor calls that came in. And we'd be able to immediately respond to those calls, even while I was doing other things. And so I had this person help me. For those of you that might be interested in that particular individual, I'll share with you that one of the little strategies that worked best for me was when the realtors would call in, the receptionist would, if there were a realtor call, they would go right to this person, right to my realtor liaison, whether it was an information call or a question on a loan and process or whatever. And I set up a system where my realtor liaison would tell him, Greg's in with a client right now, but if you could just give me a snippet, let me see if I can interrupt him and get you an answer. Now, Greg wasn't necessarily in with the client. Greg might have been sitting there doing his reading, during his reading time or during his email response time, doing the things that he needed to do to build his business. But I would have her give that response. So and then sometimes, a lot of times I wasn't with people, but she would come in, she'd say, it's so-and-so on the phone, and they wanted to know this. I would parrot her the answer to their question. I would give her the answer to their question if I didn't want to come to the phone, and I would let her give it back to the realtor or the builder. What ended up happening over the period of time, and we both found out, there's only 10 or 12 real questions that ever get asked and ever get answered. And after I gave her the answers enough times and she parroted it back, she got to the point where she could give the answers without me. And that was a tremendous assist. But she did it by virtue of the fact that I taught her the answers to the questions over the course of time by back and forth. Now, another neat thing when you do that is if I do want to take the call, they've been told I'm in with the client. So I would always come on the phone kind of out of breath and very busy, no matter what I was doing. And I would say, you know, hi, Jerry, how are you? How can I help you? Oh, gee, Greg, are you in with the client? Yeah, but I didn't want you to have to wait. And they're all impressed that I stopped the loan application, which I really wasn't even in, and took their call and gave him an answer real quick and gave it to him fast. Didn't have to talk to him for 7 or 8 minutes because they understood I was in with the client and they knew I was doing this as a special favor. They felt special. They got their answer. Mission accomplished in a big way. Okay, 3s and 5s and 10s trying to get to 15. Okay, it's not rocket science. Okay, it's really not rocket science. What it is identifying, first of all, what you wanted, how many more loans do you want to do? Okay, and then who are the horses necessary to get you there? All right. You know you've got a certain number of referral partners right now. Go back and look and see what they referred you. As a matter of fact, you should be keeping records on a weekly basis of each of your referral partners and how many pre-quals they sent you this week, how many applications they sent you this week, and more importantly, how many they didn't. You know, it's real interesting. I would sit down when I was doing in-house counseling with loan originators. I used to run around the country and do some consulting. Okay, Jennifer tells me I have 3 minutes. But Eric went over. No, I'm just kidding. Where was I? Gosh, I lost my train of thought. Don't stick 3 fingers in my face again, Jennifer. Okay. Whoa, when I was running around the country and I was consulting with people, you know, they would ask me, well, how do you build a team? How do you build a team? And I said, well, it's real simple. When I got to 15 loans a month, I was pretty stressed out. And what I wanted to do is have somebody come in that could help me with the things that weren't what I called high payoff activities. What's high payoff activities for a loan originator? Being out there among potential referral partners. Everything you can do to be out and among and communicating with and seeing and eating with and drinking with people who can help you build your business, who have referrals for you. And be spot on, handy, and available on immediate notice. You've got to be able to answer questions or have a teammate who can answer questions immediately. Proactive communication is critical in building relationships with referral partners. You need to communicate with them proactively, and your goal should be that they never have to call you with a question. You keep them, or you and your assistant keep them so advised and so up to speed on the status of the loan and process that they should never have to call you and ask you a question. We would call that a strike, a loss. When somebody had to call us and ask us for a question, whether it be the customer or the realtor, we would say we failed in our mission to be communicative on this loan and process. And you know, we held ourselves to a very high standard, and I'm going to be the first to admit that we didn't always achieve it. But boy, that's what we were striving for. And we were always under the impression that if we could get them the information on the loan and process first, before they had to call and ask us, we'd won. Okay? And so we became known for being the best communicators. Last idea, we communicated in writing every Friday on every loan and process with our status report that went to the listing agent, the selling agent, the borrower, and the loan officer, so the loan officer knew what everybody was seeing. And that way we did it on Friday afternoons so that all of the agents got all the information on all their loans in process from us on Friday afternoon. So they were able to field the questions that they normally get from their clients over the weekend when the clients are not working. Okay? That weekly status report, whenever I had any loan officers who heard me teach this strategy, I'd ask them, how do your realtors, how do your builders feel about these status reports? And the answer that I got back 99.9% of the time was they love them. Okay, so when you're putting out status reports on a weekly basis, you're communicating, you're touching them, you're informing them, and they love what you're doing. They love your level of service. That way it's real easy to get them to sit down with you with another agent at breakfast or lunch and promote you. Okay? All right, my time is up right now. Eric, you tell me what you want me to do. I can't do
If I
it.
can get my headset off mute, I will go ahead and address. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank you, Greg, for sharing your thoughts and ideas. And I love the idea that you made a little bit of a tactical adjustment to what we had originally talked about based on the nature of the audience. Guys, I don't know if you knew that or not, but what
I was supposed to take you to 60 loans a month. I need more than 30 minutes.
I agree, and here's the thing, guys. You know, one of the reasons I love working with Greg is because he's got such a broad base of knowledge, and he does such a great job of connecting the dots for people. That's you know, and I love the fact, Greg, that you know, kind of met people where they were at. What I will say, for just in the interest of time, there's a couple of key closing points that I need to make here. So we're going to bypass the next Q&A section, which had originally been planned. If you do have direct questions for Greg, please do post them in the Q&A because we will get that information to Greg and to our coaching team.
Well, I'll promise you this. There's 500 plus of you on this call, and I'll promise you this. If you have questions about anything that I had to say or any type of a team building, you just put it up here, and they're going to give me all the questions. I already have time blocked next week to respond to these emails. And so it will happen. So it's not going to happen until Monday, but you're going to get answers to all your questions.
Definitely. And like I said, Greg, thank you so much for adjusting to the needs of the audience. And actually, I think you gave us a better program than what I had originally asked you to do as part of the program. There were a few questions in the Q&A about, getting to a much higher volume of team and what you do. And Greg addressed some of those issues in his program and presentation. There was one key comment that I wanted to make sure, because I know, Greg, you and I have talked about this. Keep in mind, when Greg is talking about processor, he is talking about full-time dedicated processor, not off-site company shared processor who doesn't do anything but shuffle papers back and forth. So it's a little bit different fine-tuning than what some of you may be exposed to based on what your company processor currently provides you. Greg's processors are very involved with customers as well, and they do a lot of the conditions chasing conversations and follow-up customer service stuff with the clients as well, which is why his model of 15 loans with one loan officer and one processor is feasible, and it does work extremely well. Anyway, Greg, I want to thank you so much for sharing with us. What I'm going to do at this point is there are a couple of key points that I want to share with all of you on the audience. Again, thank you so much, Greg, for joining us and hopping on here.
You're welcome. I'm going to hop off, and I'm going to use the rest of the time that I have to answer any questions that you get to me. So thanks, everybody, for listening, and thanks, MSS, for getting putting this together. And Eric, thank you. I always enjoy being a part of your presentations.
Well, thank you so much, Greg. You and I will follow up a little later this week, and we'll circle back around to that. All right, guys, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you just a couple of fine points to really put a finishing touch on what we've talked about today. And what I mean by that is just to walk you back through the journey that we've taken over the last 2 hours. We started at the beginning of the program focusing on what your ultimate vision of success is, what you want to accomplish in an ideal, perfect world. What do you want to make happen? What needs to take place? Then we drilled down into what the obstacles, challenges you're going to face and what the solutions are to solve those problems, as well as how to be very proactive in planning out what you want to generate on a weekly and monthly basis from a lead generation, lead volume standpoint, so that you know whether you're on pace or not to achieve your bigger goals. It's beginning with the end in mind, design in mind concept operationally. Then we started talking about how you could translate those ideas and share those ideas to find winning solutions to the challenges and problems that you face. And so talking about tactical ways of reaching out to the people who can benefit most in the market, how to create a deeper level of collaboration with your business development partners and agents, how to secure and prioritize and profitize those relationships. Greg shared with you some of the ideas about how to make sure that you're in touch and providing a very high level of service and to really identify what are the core needs of the referral partners that you seek to build relationships with. And we'll be following up some other ideas on that. The final piece of this is what do you do throughout the year to make sure that you reinforce and implement those ideas and strategies. So that's what I want to spend the final few minutes with you on here. I'm going to do my best to close up by the end of the hour, so let me rip through this. At the end of the day, all the ideas and strategies that have been shared with you today are a tool. The problem with tools is it depends on how you use them or not, whether they work. Like, for example, think about the tool of a lever. It's a very simple machine. You've got a bar and a pivot point. If that pivot point is in the wrong place, it doesn't do a whole lot of good. I can push down with 100 pounds of force on one side and only get 100 pounds of lift on the other. But all of a sudden, if I use the tool properly, just by moving that pivot point a couple feet to the other side, all of a sudden, 100 pounds of effort on this side produces 1,000 pounds of lift on the other. It's those minute, fine-tuning adjustments that make huge impact in the results that we achieve. So there's a couple of key things in the materials that we're going to walk through. One is you've got to commit time to build this plan. You've got to commit time to working on what you want to do in your business and how to work on fine-tuning your skills. Just like any skill or any talent or ability, origination, marketing, sales strategy, and communication tools are a skill just like anything else, just like playing tennis, basketball, golf, any sport, writing, playing a musical instrument. Any skill is a combination of talent and practice. And so when you work on your skills and you work to develop your skills, you will evolve to a higher level of performance. So as we move through these, there's couple of quick concepts I'm going to share with you in 2 minutes. One, like I said, is focus on what your highest payoff activities are. In our business, there's 4 primary roles: marketing, selling, conditions chasing, which is often referred to as customer service, and processing. If you're the one doing all of that by yourself, you're probably capped at about 5 loans a month. If you have one person who's split off and you've shared, you're responsible for marketing and selling, and you've got a second person on your team who's responsible for conditions and processing, you're probably up to around the 12 to 15 loans a month mark. To get past 12 to 15 loans a month, you've got to think about going to the next level, so you've got to figure out what you let go of. At the end of the day, think about it from this perspective. If you spent, you went out and had lunch with an agent 5 or 6 times over a 3 to 4 month period, right? Total 10 hours or so spent with that agent, and that agent refers you 6 deals a year, and you make $4,000 a deal. That's worth $24,000 in revenue to your company. And by the way, I'm talking gross pricing here. But if you spend 10 hours bringing in a loan from first point of contact, the borrower referral you get from the agent, you get them pre-qualified, you stay in touch with them over a 6 to 8 week period. They find a house. You help them, structure the loan 3 different times, answering all their questions, whatever. So 8 to 10 hours spent originating one loan, you make $4,000, or your company, you generate $4,000 in revenue for your company. The value of that time is $400 per hour. The value of the time spent developing a business development partnership that is worth 6+ deals a year is worth $2,400 per hour. So as you reach each ceiling of growth, as you begin to stretch to the limit of you and your team's capacity, you need to look at what else needs to come off your plate and be reassigned to other team members so that you can get to that next level of value, that next level of service, and that next level of growth. And the other element of that is being disciplined. One of the last sheets in the action guide that we gave you is a simple daily briefing and debriefing worksheet. The second element of this is you want to stay focused on progress and perfection. The challenge with goal setting is the highest achievers of us set incredible goals. The problem is sometimes we can use those goals as something we beat ourselves up about. If we're constantly focused on the goal that's way out there in the distance on the horizon and we're chasing a constantly moving target, comparing where we are to the goal we're dreaming of being at, we're probably more likely to feel depressed and deflated than we are to feel encouraged and excited. But if we focus on the progress that we made this week versus last week, this month versus last month, this year versus last year, we're likely to be much more enthused, much more energized, and therefore able to do a lot more. The third key function of this is you need to stay on track and focus your progress. Greg talked about this concept a little bit, which is this whole idea of what gets measured gets done. How do you know if you're on pace or not with your goals? If you don't check and monitor and track the results on a regular basis, you won't know whether you're on pace or not, and you won't know how to fix it if you're off pace. So one of the final tools that we want to give you and encourage you to use is each week use a simple log of the people you're talking to, where they came from, what were the results, if they had any objections, and if you want to track the dollars of it so you can be more focused and productive in building a budget for yourself as an independent originator, that you can use this performance tracker tool as a way of keeping you focused and disciplined. So if you know your lead generation goal is 6 leads a week and you only have 3 and it's Thursday afternoon, you need to get on the phone and see what you can do to find some additional people who need your help. Okay? All right. The bonus is find somebody to hold you accountable. By the way, as I mentioned earlier, Platinum Marketing is a great tool to use to help keep a wider reach out there and a wider network out and keep in touch with a larger group of people with less individual effort. By the way, MSS, one of our sponsors of today's program, has been gracious to offer a free 14-day trial membership so you guys can test pilot this program. You can contact those guys, the information on your screen, and in some of the follow-up messaging you're going to see. The final piece of this action plan, the bonus strategy that will make a radical difference to whether you implement and execute these ideas or not throughout the year, is create accountability for yourself. I mean, think about it from this perspective. These guys, Michael Jordans, the Wayne Gretzky's, the Tom Brady's of the world, what did they all have in common? Well, the simple answer is they all had someone that held them accountable, somebody who they trusted and cared enough about, and that cared enough about their success that they would feel guilty if they didn't follow through on the promises that they had made. So whatever it is that you do today, whatever you decide, go out and find an accountability partner that's going to give you a 95% chance that you will follow through on the ideas and strategies that you've now decided you want to implement. The keys to a good accountability partner are somebody who gives you that outside perspective, somebody you trust that can keep you focused on steady progress, and somebody that can be your running buddy, that will hold you accountable to the promises that you make to yourself, your family, and your business development partners. If you're not sure who that person is, or if you'd like some help finding somebody, Maximum Acceleration team would love to be able to offer that service to you. There's a couple of different ways that we can provide a service to you. One is if you'd like to have a live program for your team, or if you'd like to have any of our staff or any of Greg Frost or Ray or Ginger Bell or regular guest presenters we use come out and do an on-site program for you or your team, just give us a call. We have a great program that we do called the Maximum Growth Track, Planning to Win series. It's similar to today's program, a little bit more expanded and a lot more in-depth personal approach to it. Secondly, if you are wondering who you could use as an accountability partner, if you're thinking about the possibility of what coaching could do for you and the power it would have in your growth curve and the speed of your growth, the best way we've found to help you understand it is by offering you what we call a strategy session. We'll go deep on one particular issue. You get a complete action plan for how to overcome the obstacles or challenges that you're facing, or execute on the ideas or opportunities you see in your market, and through the course of the conversation, you'll have a real coaching experience and therefore be able to make a better informed decision about if, when, and how you want to pursue that on a more in-depth basis. You just simply go to our website, www.mxl.com, mxlcoach.com/strategy, to register and give us the information we need so we can reach out and get you scheduled with one of those sessions. We do only have a limited number of sessions available each week. Our coaches are running pretty close to maximum capacity, so it really is filled on a first-come, first-served basis. But just go to that website. You'll give us the information we need to be able to get one of those programs scheduled for you. Of course, there's no cost or obligation for the program. It's just simply what we've found to be the most effective way of helping you understand the power of accountability. All right, the last thing I want you to do from an action item standpoint today, I want you to follow this simple process. One, decide what was the one most powerful idea you heard in today's program. Just one. You'll have the opportunity to come back and listen to this program later. The recording will automatically be sent out to all the registrants and attendees here shortly after. But decide, what is the one first thing you want to implement today? Secondly is decide, what action do you need to take to make that a part of your daily business? For example, you really like the piece I did on the passionate about serving and who questions. So your action item is schedule 30 minutes to study and practice how to use the who questions to find more service opportunities in active conversations or transactions. Great. That's your next action plan. Sometimes the action plan is, download these tools and materials and decide what was the one most important first thing you want to implement. Maybe it's building that volume goals exercise and determining exactly how many people you need to be talking to each week and how many leads you need to be generating each week. The third action item is, the third part of this putting it in play process is decide by when are you going to have that action item implemented. Set a specific target date for completion. That doesn't mean you start beating yourself up if you don't make it, but at least it gives you a focus point or a deadline that you desire to shoot for. If you leave it undefined, what's the likelihood of it not actually happening? Pretty high. The fourth thing is decide who you want to hold you accountable and make a promise to them. Go tell your business partner, go tell your client, go tell one of your agents that you work with that you want to start implementing this, passionate about serving who questions process in every transaction that you're doing, and that you're going to commit to that business development partner that you're going to start using those who questions to find more service opportunities for you and your business development partner. Tell them about it and ask them to hold you accountable to it. Ask them to follow up with you a week or two down the road about whether you did or didn't do it and what needs to change to get it done if you missed it. That is one of the key. I mean, if there were a silver bullet or a magic trick or a power strategy that I could encourage you to do that would make all the difference in the world to whether you execute or not, accountability is you're literally 6 to 8 times more likely to execute on purpose when you make a promise to somebody else and ask them to hold you accountable. So with that in mind, just one other quick update to let you guys know. One of our coaches, a continuation of the Maximum Performance webinar series, picks up next Tuesday back at our regular time at 10 o'clock Central. And I apologize, I'm losing track of the train of thought when exactly our regular training is. That's bad of me. I'm losing my train of thought, and it's something we've been doing every week on Tuesdays since the beginning of October. Check out the schedule. You can go to mxlcoach.com/webinars. Find out about the next 6 or 8 events that we're going to be doing on a weekly basis. We'd love to have you join us for the audience. The idea and focus of these is we're trying to create a community of learning. We're trying to provide valuable content and resources to you like today's program that help you grow your business to the next level, because we're committed to the growth of this industry. We're passionate about the growth of this industry. Next week's program is going to focus on doing a lot more in-depth conversation, some of the ideas that Greg shared with you about what to talk with business development partners about and how to create that synergy and connection with that leverage that can be then leveraged into significantly higher levels of performance and productivity with you and your business development partners. Please make sure you join us for next week's program, The Ultimate Interview with Coach Earl McLean. Other than that, I want to thank all of our sponsors, and I want to close out today's program just by getting you to think about one key concept. Sometimes we have to develop the grit and determination of a bulldog, and what I mean by that is I had a good friend in high school, and he had a bulldog named Bubba, and my buddies and I were sitting around one night, and we played this game with Bubba. We took Bubba's favorite chew toy, and we got him to grab hold of that thing and bite onto it. And somebody came up with the brilliant idea of seeing how long Bubba could hold on. And he would bite on, and you could pick him up by that chew toy and suspend him in midair. The problem is we could never settle the bet about how long Bubba could hold on, because none of us could hold him up as long as he could hold on with his teeth. And that's what I mean by develop the sense of persistence, passion, and purpose that gives you that I'm not letting go period, persistence and grit and determination. Because there are certainly issues and challenges that we're going to face, but if we just put our head down and hang on, there is a solution as well. And if there's anything that myself, my team, or any of the speakers you've heard from today can help you and assist you in getting to that place you want to be, that ultimate vision of success for 2013, do not hesitate to ask. So with that, I'm going to hang on the webinar for just a few more minutes here. I want to thank you for attending, for taking time out of your busy schedules to commit to learning how to do your practice better and how to perfect your craft. I also want to say a big thank you to all of our sponsors, Mortgage Success Source and the family of companies, National Mortgage Professional Magazine. We couldn't do these kind of programs without their support and without their encouragement. I encourage you to check out their tools and resources. These are extremely valuable things that will help you reach a much higher level of success in a much shorter period of time. Of course, if you have any additional questions, we're going to leave the webinar open for just a few more minutes so that all of those questions can get posted. We will be following up with those questions immediately after. Of course, again, if you are interested in having one of those strategy sessions that I mentioned, the free 1-hour coaching sample session, just go ahead and post that request here in the Q&A or chat box. Just give us a name and phone number where our team can get a hold of you to get that appointment scheduled with one of our coaches. I will be doing that as you're posting those requests. Please just go ahead and pop in the best number and an email address that we can reach you at to be able to schedule one of those appointments. Are scheduled on a first-come, first-served basis. If there are any additional questions that anybody who's still on the line has, we will be hanging out for just a few more minutes here to give you guys the opportunity to go ahead and post any final questions and to post in your request for the strategy session. Again, just give us a best phone number and best email address to reach you if you'd like one of the free coaching strategy sessions.